Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Keeping Your Home Workers Engaged and Motivated. Thank you all for joining us. Just to let you know, this morning's session is being recorded, so we will share a link with you at a later date. If you've any issues with that, then we have sent the privacy and GDPR information over for you. So just before we get started, we've got a mix of clients and non-clients on the session. If there's anything that we can help you with afterwards, if you're a client, just pick up the phone to one of the team. Kath and Katie would be happy to have a chat with you. And if you're not a client and are interested, we do offer a free health and safety and HR health check, which we can help with a number of areas, from documentation to ongoing support and bespoke training. So just get in touch afterwards. Once the session's done, you will receive at a later date an article covering all of the questions and answers during the session, and then we will share the recording with you once that's all been clipped up and ready to go for you. So do enjoy the session, but get in touch if you need anything afterwards. Just to let you know, because there's a few of you that are regulars to our events, we've got a few more events coming up that you might be interested in joining. So we've got a roundup of all things coronavirus. So that's going to be on the 17th of Feb at 10 a.m. People have still got so many questions, and with potentially the end of the furlough scheme coming up, and we're going to try and give you the most up-to-date information on that. We've got a really exciting session that we're in partnership with KW Chambers for, with what tribunal judges look for on the 4th of March, just giving people an insight into what it says on the tin, but often people get confused and frustrated at tribunals that maybe they've not gone their way, so it'll give us a nice little insight into that. I don't know if anyone that's on attended our Essential Skills for Managers course last month, but it went down really well. It was very successful, so we've decided to run it again. So 22nd of March, Monday to Friday, 9 to 10 in the morning, so you can get on with your day. It's £250 plus VAT for the session, but there's a discount on multiple bookings. But if you didn't attend and you're interested, again, just get in touch after the session. And very finally, we've got a common pitfalls session on HR and health and safety, just covering the things that tend to trip businesses up. Now, if you're outsourcing to us, hopefully there won't be any issues on there because we'll have covered it all for you. But if not, then feel free to join and we can run you through those areas. Before I pass on to Kath and Katie, if there's anybody that you know at the moment, other business owners that are having a bit of a tough time with any staffing issues or just things that they'd like to get sorted, you can refer someone on to us, and if they do become a client, you get a £150 voucher of your choice. So you can just go onto our website and pass anyone's details over. So enjoy the webinar. I'm going to pass over to Katie, but if you need anything afterwards, just email me on louise@howards-uk.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lou, for that great introduction. And morning, everybody. Welcome to our live Q&A webinar about how to keep your home workers engaged and motivated. Like Lou said, my name's Katie. I'm joined with my colleague Kath today, and we'll be answering all your questions that you have on how to keep your home workers engaged and motivated.
So thank you for that, Katie. I'm Kath Crane, and what we'd really like to say is this is a really topical subject at the moment. There's no end in sight at the moment into lockdown 3, and with the government still saying work from home when you can, enable your employees to work from home if you can, it couldn't be more timely. We'll run through a bit about how the session's going to work in terms of the questions and answers soon, but first of all, we're going to do a bit of introduction.
Thank you, Kath. So, like I said, my name is Katie Fletcher. I'm a senior HR project advisor along with Kath. I've now been with Howards just over 3 years, but I've been a HR professional for the last 25 years, predominantly in manufacturing, but worked in a lot of different sectors. More often than not, if you phone our advisory lines, you'll probably not get to speak to myself and Kath because we're busy out doing HR projects. We do advise as well, but yeah, chances are you'll probably speak to one of the advisory team.
Yes, I've worked for Howards for nearly 2.5 years now. 15 years in HR for me. Like Katie, I've worked in manufacturing, but also in rail, construction, retail. So that's me. So thank you for submitting some questions. You know what? We've already had some great questions.
We've got some fantastic questions, Kath, haven't we, today?
Yeah. But if you want to put some questions in this morning, all you need to do, there's a Q&A speech bubble on your screen. So you might not see it unless you move your mouse. But if you just click on there, type your question in, press submit, then we'll be able to see what you've put in.
And hopefully we'll be able to get an opportunity to answer all your questions. If we don't by any chance, there will be an opportunity where we can come back to you at a later stage. Okay, shall we get started then,
Get
Kath?
started, yeah.
Let's make a start. Okay, so the first question that's come in is, I need to make sure my team is feeling happy and motivated. Can you give me some general advice? What a great question. I think, firstly, look at what you normally do. What would you normally do and build on that? I think the key here is to really knowing your team. At this particular moment in time, nothing's normal. Everybody's feeling anxious. Everybody's finding different ways of working. So it's about understanding how they are feeling, keeping in touch. Remember, your phone call might be the only call that somebody's got during the day, so they may be really looking forward to it. Everybody works really differently. Kath's really super organised and everything planned and booked in, but everybody does work differently. So, if you are organising a call with one of your team members, make sure you stick to it, put it in your diary, make sure you give it the time that it needs, and make sure that you follow through with it. People may be feeling isolated, lonely, lots of different constraints taking away the work situation, family members, children, homeschooling. I certainly feeling that pain myself at the moment. So yeah, keep your promises. Don't book something in and then not follow through with it.
Yeah. There's a key word that's coming to mind, Katie, and that's trust. Trust in your team. That has got to be your bedrock, your foundation. And it might be worth me clarifying a bit about this webinar today. We're not talking about somebody's output. We're not talking about keeping track of what work that they're doing. It's more about keeping everyone motivated to do their work, keeping them engaged, which will have a knock-on effect of more productivity. So it's a win-win situation. And another thing is, can't emphasize too much about having the right tools for the job. Because if you're struggling with your internet connection, if you haven't got the right desk set up and stuff, then it's not exactly going to make you motivated to do the best job that you can.
Absolutely, Kath. And I think one of the key words there that comes out for me is trust. If you don't trust your team, then that has a knock-on effect on everything else.
So we're taking it for granted that you do trust your team. And if you've got any issues with not yet having established that team, there might be new members to your team. Give us a call. We can help you, support you as you work through developing that trust with your team. Well, Katie, we've had another question in, and this one is all about flexibility. I know flexibility is important to my team. How can I help them when they're working from home? So that's a really
great question, Kath, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've already talked about trust, taking that as a given. If you're trusting your team to get the job done, then flexibility should go hand in hand with that. If you're trusting your team to get the job done, is it crucial that it happens sitting 9 till 5 at the desk? Or could you have a bit more flexibility within the day? I know some roles, I can hear you all screaming at me saying, well, do you know what? They're on a customer service line. They've got to be there sitting, answering those questions, answering the phone. Yes, every working environment is different. But if you've got an working environment like that, you might need to be creative about how you allow flexibility. And again, you can ring us and talk through it. Another word, though, that's springing to mind is empowering. So got your bedrock, you're trusting your team, but if you then have that trust, it's all about empowering your team to take breaks at a time that will make them more effective.
Absolutely, Kath. I think empowerment is such a powerful word. and just think how motivated your team will be if you allow that little bit of flexibility. You know, take, for example, people that are maybe homeschooling and working. You know, I know from my own personal circumstances, I getting up really early and doing a few hours in the morning, then doing my home teacher bit, and then logging back on in the afternoon. But for me to have that flexibility allows me to be able to deliver both sides, keeping me happy and motivated and engaged, and keeping everything running. So it really is important. Obviously, like Kath says, there may be some roles that don't allow you that flexibility, and it is a 9-to-5 job. But it is definitely worthwhile looking for and having that conversation. Do you know when people, you know, can work at different times? So remember when you're doing those weekly, monthly, however you structure it, check-ins, ask these questions. You know, be open and honest with your employees.
There's nothing worse than sitting at your desk all day and not moving. When you're in the office, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I'll be getting up, I'll be going to the printer, I'll be, you know, bobbing my head in at somebody else's office and going to talk something through. And keeping moving keeps that energy going. And how about, you know, having a walking meeting? If someone's got a meeting in the diary, if you're empowering your team, say, you know what, I'm going to get outside, get my headphones in, take my phone and off I go, as long as, you know, we're not talking confidentiality here, but in terms of being able to take part in a meeting while you're moving, that's a great energy buster, and also then leads to being motivated and being more engaged.
People's well-being at this moment in time is so important, and getting outside in the fresh air, but still being able to deliver, like Kath says, putting some headphones in, you can walk and talk, having those coaching conversations, coaching on the go, is fantastic. So I think it's about taking a step back and rethinking about things, retraining how, you know, what it's not the norm at the minute. So what different provisions can you put in place?
Yeah. I'm just checking to see if anyone's put any questions in. Remember, and Louise has just had the same thought as I have. If you've got any questions, because I say we have had quite a few questions coming through, and you know, this hopefully will answer some of the questions that you're already thinking of. But if there's something specific, then type it into that Q&A bubble, and then and we'll see what we can do to answer it this morning.
Okay, Kath, another question's actually come in, and the question is, I'm finding it challenging at the moment as a manager, as some of the team are motivated and on board, and I'm losing that connection with others. What can I do? Another great question. So yeah, sometimes you have split camps. Sometimes, you know, people are feeling motivated by working from home, but not one rule fits all. So again, it's back to that initial check-in. What's working for them? What's working well? And listen to your employees. Don't just ring, think, oh, I've got an hour booked out, you know, and talk. Actually listen, ask some probing questions. If you need any support with those one-to-one meetings or types of questions or how to structure that, please get in contact. We can support you with that. Pick the right time as well. What time works best? You know, if people have got childcare issues or they're doing homeschooling, is there a different time that's better than others? But it's about effective communication and asking those right questions, and keeping ahead, you know, with your employees. Once you've got that, that's a platform to build on. You know, documenting your conversations and making sure you're checking in the following week, if there are any anxieties or any worries, and just, you know, keeping the progress going.
Yeah. Katie, for me, I mean, I've got a question for you, Katie. I mean, how do you
put me on the spot now?
when you're homeschooling?
Yes, well, as probably a lot of other parents are finding, it's very, very challenging. So my daughter is 6 and she gets she's getting quite a high volume of schoolwork. So I tend to find that I structure my day. I get up really early. I log on. I do my morning calls. I have a daily call with Kath. We're in regular communication, which is great. But from a work point of view, but from a mental health point of view as well. And then I will do my homeschooling bit, regular breaks, and then I will log on in the afternoon and sometimes in an evening. So it's just trying to find that balance, but that might not work for everybody. You know, I've only got one child. There might be some people who've got more children or different ages. You know, the pressures from schools are different, pressures from work are different. but I've got a great level of flexibility. I'm able to get out, and like Kath says, I love to put my headphones in, go for a walk, have a conversation whilst I'm out walking, get thinking, then come back and I feel refreshed and refocused and ready to go. So it is about what works for that individual, because everybody is different and not one rule fits all.
No. And I'm going back to the question here, because the question is, are we losing that connection? Worried about members of my team that I might be losing connection with. So again, going back to the basics, I think really you need to exaggerate every form of communication that you would ordinarily do. So if that's having a morning check-in like Katie and I have, make sure that's in your diary. We won't say this enough. Use the tools that you've got to make sure that you do plan that. But something else I want to talk about here is mental health. Katie's already alluded to anxiety. And if we're all in the office, we might pick up on when people are looking a bit down, feeling a bit withdrawn, etc. So really, how are you going to notice this if people are working from home? You're going to have to use all your different senses and pick up on those cues as they come through. So if you are having a check-in and you just sense something's different, ask. And if you don't know what to say, make an observation, such as, like if I was saying to Katie, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I don't think you don't seem yourself at the moment. Is everything okay? Do you want to chat?
It's absolutely fine to ask that question. Great point, Kath. I think, whilst you're talking to somebody via Zoom or a telephone call, you're missing that face-to-face interaction where you can pick up on people's body language, the tone of voice, whether they're quieter than normal because you've seen them for a longer period of time. But it's okay to ask people, are you okay today? Is there anything that I can help with? Or do you need somebody to talk to? Or, I'm here, if you need any support. So yeah, great point, Kath.
And you know what? You might even then give somebody permission to do something that, well, I've noticed that you're getting a bit bogged down, or it's coming through in that call. Right, well, why don't you take a break? Why don't you go off and have a walk, get yourself refreshed, and then check in with me when you come back and see if that's reset yourself. So I think that's a really good idea. And there's nothing wrong with good old text messages. Sending a text message to someone on your team can really make them feel wanted and engaged. When I used to work for another company, quite often on a Friday morning, I'd get a silly text through from my line manager, and it always used to make me smile. So that element of surprise is already a good thing.
A great comment's just come in from Alison, actually. Thanks, okay, Alison, for your comment. Not necessarily a question, but a suggestion that's worked well for her particular company. And it's not just, I think we're going to come on to it a little bit later in a different question, but it's not just talk about work, do some fun things, sunrise photos, online quizzes, jokes, name that chocolate. That sounds an interesting one. 3 things you didn't know about me, which are all great. Like Alison says, they're great for mental health. Thank you, Alison. Some great stuff there.
Yeah. I know we've had a question in, Katie, about that. So thank you, Alison. Yeah. And we'll come back to that. The next question that's come through is all to do about keeping up to date with what's going on in the business. This is predominantly, so if you've got 2 sides to this. If you're a manager, how do you make sure that your team know what's going on in the business? You would have been having those conversations in the office, perhaps. Oh, this is how the business plan's going. But if you're from home and you haven't got it planned in your diary, then it's not going to happen. And equally, I'm sitting working at home. I'm feeling out of the loop. I might not know what's going on in terms of the business. So how am I going to find out? There's so many options. And me, for one, I've been learning so much about Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all these different video platforms and stuff. So I do think we're finding that using these video meetings is a good way to have those meetings, and therefore it's a good way to share those business updates. But remember, you'll need to plan them in Because if you don't plan them in, they won't happen. And if you don't plan them in, you need to think about how often you're going to have them. Have them more often than you would think.
And I think just on the back of that as well, I mean, there's lots of buzzwords flying around at the minute, Zoom fatigue, and there's people, you know, so many Zoom meetings. So sometimes it's nice just to pick up the phone and have a telephone call. But whichever method works for you and your organisation, I think it's also important to have some clear communication about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, the type of language, the background, dress codes. You know, if you are, I don't know, if you're conducting an interview via Zoom, you know, do you need to wear your normal dress code, your dress attire? So it's things like that that just needs a bit of clear communication around, so everybody's on the same page, if you want. So I think I would be getting the picture here. A lot of it's like communication, trust, and planning. You know, make sure you're planning things in.
Yeah. Trust, communication, empowerment. There's some really common themes coming out here, isn't there, Katie?
Yeah. I know from Howard's point of view, we get a regular update every week from Gavin on a Monday, which is a really nice, sets the tone for the week, a little bit of a business update, a little bit of how everybody's feeling. And it's great, certainly for people where most of us are working remotely at the minute, so we're not having that face-to-face contact. So you do miss a kind of those general chats in the office and you know, business updates, which you would normally hear. So if that works for you, you know, kind of bear that in mind as well.
I'm just thinking, Katie, yesterday we had our team meeting, didn't we? So there's a grid of us all on the screen. And we were all saying, you know, we miss seeing Gav in our team meetings. And all of a sudden, he popped up.
It popped up.
It pops up. And the smile on everyone's faces to see that, you know, and just think about how much that means to people. To keep.
And sometimes, Kath, we obviously talk about business, but sometimes it's nice just to check in with people and see how they're doing, and you know, what's people been up to, and you know, just to have a little bit of an update with everybody is great, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Has anyone got any more questions coming in? Because I can see, as I say, we've had plenty of questions coming through, but at the moment, I think we've only got 2 more questions that have come through that we'll be answering. So if we do, once we finish these, we'll go through some top tips. And then if we haven't, you know, we might even get to finish a few minutes early, which would give you some time back for your day. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask us, do pop them into that questions box.
Okay, next question, Kath, that has come in, which is another great question. I really want to ensure that my team stay in touch with each other, as we have had good, in brackets, not inappropriate banter in the office, and want this to continue. How can we do that? So I think Alison picked up on a few things. You know, having quizzes, having social lockdown drinks over Zoom parties. I know we've certainly spoke about it at Howarth. You know, having fancy dress. Do you all want to come on Zoom call in a costume, just as a little bit of fun? And actually ask the team. You know, not everybody's motivated by the same things, and people's personal circumstances are different, times are different, and everything else. So why don't you ask your team what you know, what if anything would you like? Coffee meeting, everybody up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
you know, I was thinking back to when we were planning something, I think it was August time, and I think Gavin, bless him, was trying to organise something that we had a fancy dress sort of early evening, Friday night sort of get together. And for some people, it was really, really exciting. And for some people, it just was not convenient, wasn't what they wanted. Putting children to bed, getting on
dress is not everybody's cup of tea.
yeah. So again, doing a range of things, suggesting a range of things, and as Katie said, you don't know unless you ask, and unless you ask your team. I've got an idea as well about having a disco. You can have a disco. You could channel your inner Kylie, especially if you're.
You like a good dance, Kath, don't you?
Yeah.
But possibly as well, not making it mandatory. You know, it's optional. It's to improve motivation and engagement. Not everybody might want to join, or you know, so things don't necessarily have to be mandatory. You know, just kind of think of the different options.
Yeah. Another really good thing is having those I say formal, but what I mean is pre-arranged coffee meetings when there isn't work on the agenda. It's purely a get-together, a chance to have that conversation. In fact, I keep mentioning Gavin, or we do, but earlier this week, Gavin said to us all, why don't you arrange just an informal meeting with, you know, one of your colleagues? I'm giving you permission. It doesn't have to be about work. Make those Zoom meeting invitations work, and have those conversations. And do you know what? All of these things have a knock-on effect in how I'm feeling, how energized I am, how connected, how engaged I am with with the business that I work for. So yeah, can't recommend it enough.
Great point, Kath.
Yeah. So we're coming up to the last question that we've had through. So remember, this is your last opportunity if you want to get your question, if you've got something burning that you want to ask us. And this one is quite a serious question, because it's all about how long people feel that they have to be working when they're working from home. If they haven't got that commute, does that mean I'm going to be expected to use that additional commuting time, etc., to work, or am I expected to work into the evening? So the question is, I've read that people are working longer hours when they're working from home. So how can I make sure this doesn't happen? And some of that pressure, you know, can come just from what you read in the media, or it can come from yourself. Some people put a lot of pressure on themselves, thinking, I need to be at my desk, I need to be working additional hours. You as a manager might have no expectations of that at all, but that doesn't stop how people are feeling. So the question is, what can I do if you notice that somebody's sending you emails late at night? Have a think, is this out of the ordinary for them, or does it suit their their lifestyle or what the commitments they've got on at the moment? So remember all those things we're talking about, communication. So the next time you speak to them, ask, say, I noticed that you were sending emails at 9 o'clock at night, and tell me a bit more about that. And then open that discussion.
Encouraging people, Kath, to take the time out to have regular breaks. It's so easy when you're at home to think, I'll just go put some washing in, or I'll just, do something in the house. But to have a little bit of time out, get some fresh air, encourage the regular breaks, rather than just continuously working, because it is so easy just to sit there.
Yeah. Our brain natural rhythms of about 90-minute cycles. So encouraging your team to really focus on something for 90 minutes, then have a short break, can be really, really good in terms of productivity, but also in motivation, etc., etc. And are you leading by example? Going to sort of let you ponder that for a second. Are you sending emails out late at night? Are you expecting responses to emails that you've sent late at night? Do you know what? I was working with a client, this was a few months ago, and the chief exec of the business, he had an out of office message, or rather his email footer, and it said on it, you may get emails from me at late in the evening. I'm juggling home, I'm juggling work, and I'll send emails when it suits me, but I am not expecting you to reply unless it's part of your working day. And so he was setting that scene and giving people permission to say, or getting worried that I've not responded to that email.
I really like that. That's a really good idea. I think, if you receive an email from your manager at 9 o'clock at night or somebody else in your team, you automatically think, oh gosh, should I be working? And, so it does give you that feeling. But yeah, clear communication about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And are you asking them, are you having your breaks? What is your structure of your day like? Do you need any support? Is it the different volumes of workload that you need some support with? So asking those real meaningful questions will, support you with that conversation.
Yeah. And going back to these cycles of how we work, if you're in an office and you actually counted up all those little times when you're not actually writing that report or whatever, having those interactions, going to the kitchen to make a drink or whatever, and you realize that you're naturally having those breaks. Whereas if you're sat at your desk at home, only the birds to listen to, then
listeners, Katha,
then it's easy to think I have to sit there. I have to continue to work without taking that break or working those additional times. So again, as we said, it's one to talk to the team about, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely. We do what we call a lot of floor walking at Haworth. So we're always, under normal circumstances, bobbing in and out of each other's offices and having whether it be an update chat or a work-related question. But there's a lot of movement that goes on between both floors. I don't know if everybody's visited our offices. We've got lovely big offices, so we tend to do a lot of floor walking around. So yeah, just think about that different situation to being working from home to working in an office environment can be hugely different. So that can have an impact on somebody's well-being.
Yeah, definitely. So we've no more questions that have come through, Katie, and stuff. So it's probably worth us going through, just recapping on what we've already talked about, because it's clear that it's a big topic at the moment. Keeping that motivation up, keeping that engagement, that feeling of connection with my boss, with the company. So let's have a think. So trust underpins everything. And remember, if you're struggling with trust, something's not right. It's either because you're at the early days of someone working with you and for you. But equally, if someone's been working for you for a long time and there isn't that trust there, then things are going wrong. So pick up the phone to us and we can help you work through that.
Absolutely. Regular check-ins, I think, are critical. Like we've said throughout the webinar, plan them in your diary, stick to them, make sure they're meaningful, make sure that you're remembering what was said in the previous conversation so you can follow through. And back to basics, thank yous. Remember, you're praising your team for doing a good job. Would you often have treated your team before to drinks out or a meal out, or what about something different like a thank you card through the post, or just something different in these uncertain times can really cheer people up and to make them feel more motivated.
Yeah. And do you know what? I know a lot of us, it's the first time that we've regularly worked from home, but you might have some members of your team who, for them, this is normal. They might have a role where they're going out to see clients, but their home base is, we do this at Haworth. We have members of the team who work from home as their default position. And so ask them, say, have you got any top tips about, our health and well-being being at home? And I remember one, Katie, is, when the kettle's boiling, do some press-ups. I think that's a bit too much for me on a Thursday morning.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about press-ups. Maybe something else, Kath.
Yeah. No, but seriously, why not have those desk stretching exercise, encouraging some desk yoga, for example? Little things that will give people that perk and that spark to be able to then get on with the rest of the day.
We've actually tried desk yoga, Kath, and we had lots of fun. So yeah, that's one for your list. And I think agree your ways of working. Let people know what's acceptable, what you're allowing them permission to do. Are you allowing them to change their hours and have that flexibility? Are you allowing them to log on later on? And but in turn, it comes back to that word again, trust. Trusting your team to do what you're supporting them to do.
Yeah. So, Katie,
No more questions, Kath?
no more questions. So really, I think on behalf of Katie and I, thank you so much for your time this morning. I think what you see is what you get with Katie and I. In terms of, but if you've got any questions, pick up the phone and we'll be more than happy to chat to you, give you that break.
Absolutely, Kath. Thank you. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. I've really enjoyed that. And like Kath says, please feel free if you've got any questions at all, just send them through and we'll be back in contact with you.